How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, this is going to be an interesting discussion. It kind of feeds off of a comment or a concern that was put up on the Keepers of Chaos, that's KAOS, Facebook group. It's a great question, and I thought that we can maybe give a response to that question, and it's about basically regretting moving up. You know, what are some of the things that can cause somebody to regret seeking the higher position? And this is great dialogue because I think that if anybody's looking for a higher position, these are things that they should know before going in. Because if you don't know it, it could cause you to second guess your decision to move up once you're already in the position. My guests today are going to be Joe Pomponio, and we're also going to have Russ Hamilton, who's back. Good to have him back. But before we go ahead and introduce them, let me just do our sponsors. We have American Military University. Guys, if you're looking to get a degree, seek higher education, please check out American Military University. They're very supportive of what we do in corrections, very supportive of what we do here on Tier Talk. And we also have Guardian RFID. So from inmate tracking and cell checks to cloud-based business and artificial intelligence, Guardian RFID digitally transforms jails, prisons, and juvenile detention facilities of every size. Visit guardianrfid.com for more information. And if you guys get a chance, please check out the other videos that we put up on there. Me and Joe did a video recently up on there. Russ got multiple videos up there for tips. And guys, don't forget, Inmate Manipulation Decoded is on the market. You can get that in the description. The link's in the description. And we also have Lessons Learned While Working in Prison. My Journey from Officer to Administration. This book is loaded with tips. It's out now on the market. The cost is $60. The link to that is in the description. And guys, I think this is a very good, it's not even a book, it's like a manual. I mean, there's so much advice. There's just a ton of advice. There's 3 short stories. It's the legacy, but it's also a journal. It's meant for you to share your thoughts with somebody. And then when you get ready to leave, you could pass it off to them. And it kind of keeps the core values in this profession, because that's the biggest thing. You know, as we evolve, we always want to stay true to the core values. And what's the best way for us to do that is for us to share our experiences and pass it off to the new people and give them information that we never had. And I think that's pretty cool to just be in a position to want to be able to do that and give back. Let's see. We got Russ, who has been quoted 14 times in my most recent book. Hey, Russ, you mind introducing yourself again to our audience?
Not at all, but let me just say on the 14 times, it's an honor to be able to do that. It's something I've always wanted to do, and it's always something that I hoped that I was going to be able to be useful after being put out to pasture. So there we have that.
Russ, we published your most famous trademark lines. Russ got a great trademark line on complacency, one on circumventing authority, and my favorite is inmates never ask for mercy. Always ask for mercy, never ask for justice. So now we have published that. They can't be stolen, because I'm thinking Steven Spielberg's got his eyes on that, Russ. You know, so we took ownership.
I hope.
I know Oprah was very quick to jump on that line. She was like, you know what, Russ, I agree. Inmates never ask for mercy, but they always ask, they never ask. They always ask for mercy. They never ask for justice. Damn,
I doubt that. Yeah. But anyway, folks out there, my name is Russ Hamilton. I am a former and retired sergeant with California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. I also have worked in the California juvenile justice system at a local juvenile center near me. I currently work for a private company, and we do reentry and rehabilitation work with inmates at a local jail and probationers through a local probation office. And I am just, trying to be the best, ambassador for corrections that I can be. And I think that that's one of the reasons that Anthony did this book, is to give us all a chance to have our fingerprints on really changing some of the things in corrections.
Yeah, I love that comment you wrote on Keepers of Chaos about the book. You talked about the fingerprints. That's powerful, because that's the reason why. Ever since I've done Tier Talk over 10 years ago, it's always been about having our voices heard. I haven't strayed from that. So I think this is a great way to do that. And I'm going to tell you something, guys. If you guys ever want to write your book, this book that I have out is a great template for that, because there's so many areas that you could explore, that you could create your own book, your own version, your own perspective. I just kind of put out the layout, but And it's cool about this book is I know my experiences that brought me to those thoughts. I would love to hear other people's experiences, whether they agree or not. But I think it's a great book, and I thank you, Russ. I love the fingerprint. I wish I would have put that in the book because that to me hit home because it's a great way to express what I wanted. And then we have Joe from Texas. What's up, Joe?
Good afternoon, or should I say good evening, everyone. How are y'all?
I'm doing well. We're not live, Joe. So,
well, in Texas, y'all is too. If it's more than one, it's y'all.
Hey, Joe, do you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
I'm Joe Pomponio. I'm a retired lieutenant with the Texas Department of Criminal Justice of 30 years. Been retired a year and hanging out with Anthony and Russ and helping them put fingerprints on this new book and getting quotes in there and living the dream, passing on the knowledge, man, having a blast.
Yeah, and guys, by the way, people are asking me for autographed copies. If you do want one, email me at gangianthony@yahoo.com. So that's Gangi, Gangi, Anthony@yahoo.com. And just give me your address, give me some time. I'll order the book, and then I'll autograph it for you, and I'll send it your way. But if we do that, I mean, I'm not going to charge you more for the book, but I may have to charge you a little bit for the shipping. So if the book is 60, I may ask for 70 because the book is a heavier book, and then I could just order it and then sign it and then send it out your way. And as always, guys, I appreciate everybody that's been supporting me so far through this journey. So reason why some may regret moving up in their career. So Russ has a Keepers of Chaos page, which is doing very well. And what I like about Russ's page, it's a mentoring page. So people are actually starting to put up their concerns, and you should see the responses. The responses are literally, they're developed responses. I mean, these are people that are sharing their experiences that found a way to relate to the concern. And then, because someone shows a vulnerability by asking a question, look at the amount of trust that group is now forming. And then people in their effort to answer it express vulnerability. So I love, that's like the best way to learn, believe it or not, is when you have that brutal honesty. So, and I know, Russ, before we go forward, Russ, when Michael Williams put up that post, you were humbled by that post, right? What was it about the post? The fact that people are now trusting your venue to ask these concerns?
I'm just seeing more and more issues within Keepers of Chaos that people are bringing forth, and they're bringing them forth to really get truly a lot of input. No knock to anyone else out there, but I think that Keepers of Chaos is the most professional Facebook site for corrections that there is out there, bar none. The people that I've got in there are all in there because they want to learn, because they want to, gain that knowledge. They want to gain some perspective. They want to be mentored by the best of the best of the best. And I think that that's what we're on the verge of providing, or have been providing, with Keepers of Chaos. And so to have people come in there and really get down to the nitty gritty about corrections, and then to have all of my people jump on it, giving different perspectives in a respectful way, and not blowing up the page like I see in some other forums that I hang out in under other names, and so forth. It's just it's just an honor to think that these are people that I've tried to cultivate, tried to bring along. Many of them, even very new in the profession. It's just something that's really nice to see at this point, because this is what I designed Keepers of Chaos to be.
Yeah, and guys, by the way, I think this would be something that we could do more often. If there's concerns that we want to express on the video, we could get them through the Keepers of Chaos. And what I'm hoping that will do is that helps us provide a little bit more context. And I'm going to read real quick what Michael Williams wrote. Let me just open it up. Oh, thanks, Joe. Joe has my back. I appreciate that, Joe. Just in case, he made sure I had the post. Okay, so he wrote, Has anyone been a supervisor and after some time you decided that it was not your thing? Before I transferred, one of my previous supervisors voluntarily demoted himself and now appears to be a much happier person. Apparently, his home life was not what it once was, but now he can enjoy sports with his kids. So here's the thing, guys. The question is very vague because I think Russ's response to this, let me read Russ's response because it's on point, because Russ this is very vague. It's a question that definitely could be very discussion worthy. But again, Russ answers it by saying, You have to have a defining philosophy about what you're doing and why. For Russ, I wanted to be an impact player for 17 years, then wanted to be an impact coach. So I promoted. I eventually retired, but returned part-time as an officer and put on a 2-year clinic on finding weapons, phones, and dope. Anyway, always my best natural slot, but easier and yes, happier. Happier and easier are not the only things and only reasons. Combinations of things, etc., may add up more on one side. It's a hard puzzle to solve for some. Good luck. So I just want to mention something, guys. And I guess we can kind of start off with this because we have 5 reasons why someone may regret moving into the higher position. So I think this dialogue is more for people that want to move up. Here's a little bit of some reality that's going to happen once you move up. So this ain't an effort to deter, but rather be aware. Be aware that these are in the midst. And I think the more you're aware of it, the more it doesn't surprise you when you step into the position and then you're looking to run out. Now, real quick, I just want to mention something. Being in this profession right now, moving up has to serve an internal purpose. It can't be external. You're not moving up for money. You know, you can't, because I'll be honest with you, in the long run, the sacrifices you're going to have to make when moving up, the money is not going to be enough to hold those sacrifices. So I don't know what this person's reason was for moving up. But if it was strictly external because he wanted the money or whatever it was, well, then that's not a good enough reason to move up. So when the problems occur and sacrifices are being made, then I don't expect that to be enough to hold the person into the position. Now, again, there is family too, and we talked about this on another show. But if you're able to translate what those sacrifices are when you move up, and hopefully your family understands what those sacrifices are, then you hope that if you are missing out on some events, because it's going to happen. I mean, that can happen even as an officer or even as the front line. The key is your loved one, your spouse, or whoever it is able to translate that to the family who wants to see you. Like, I know my husband or my wife want to be here today, but unfortunately can't. They have to be at work because it's the type of job that they do and blah, blah, blah. But be advised, if it wasn't for them doing this, we wouldn't be able to do these events or go on our vacation, you know? And the big thing is when it comes to sacrifices is you may not be able to be there at all the moments, but you need to be present when you are. So it kind of teaches you to be present in the moments that you are, because again, you may not know when you're going to have that moment again. But I don't find that to be a sacrifice that just supervisors make. I believe that we all tend to make those sacrifices. So just to get that out there, I don't know what the person's reasons are for moving up. So it's very hard for me to have a discussion on that unless I can understand what his reasons were. And if they were superficial in nature, then there's nothing I can do. But if you were searching for something and you felt that next level could be that higher level of growth that you want to attain, or, you know, maybe you have an end game that I want to be an administrator, but why? Do you want to be it because you want power, or do you want to be in it because you want more money, or do you want to be in it because that's the best way to understand the operations of a prison and you're looking to grow to your highest potential? I could work with number 3, but we can't work with the other 2 because again, that's externally motivated. You know, we're looking for things that inspire. So the first thing, let's get the obvious one out of the way, and we'll have Russ go first because this was Russ's, and then we'll have Joe, and then I'll touch up. This is an easy one. Let's just get it out of the way. So this is not one of the aha moments. But guys, anybody that's moving up, you're going to lose your seniority perks. So Russ, let's break that down. What are seniority perks? Some people may not know that from the outside looking in, and you know, what do you mean by losing them?
So one of the things that tends to happen in most of corrections, I'm not saying that every place is like this, is as you progress through being an officer and you start to get some seniority, you start to be able to have the ability to maybe get the days off you want. Maybe you want Mondays and Thursdays. No, that's just a joke, people. You know, maybe you want, you know, a piece of the weekend, a Friday, Saturday. Maybe you're lucky enough that you have a lot of churn in your department, and so you're able to get that Saturday, Sunday in there. And then as you go along, you start to be able to maybe bid on the particular job that you want. Maybe, you know, you want something easy. Maybe you want something a little bit harder. But either way, you're able to put yourself into the position to get the type of job you want that comes with whatever training and whatever other benefits come along. So you're then at that point, you know, you've reached the pinnacle of what you're able to do. And then you decide that you're going to promote. Well, a lot of places, those benefits just go away. Suddenly you're thrown back to the bottom of the barrel. You end up having to, you know, get all those great, Monday, Tuesday shots of days off again instead of the Friday, Saturday, or the Saturday, Sunday that you had. And then on top of all of that, you're no longer in the particular job you want. You may go somewhere that you think, at least in your head, is less desirable. And so you still have to work your way back into being able to play for the position that you like best. And so all of that goes away. As for me, for instance, what I said in what Anthony had read there was I considered myself to be that impact player, that guy that was there that was going to find the dope, the weapons, the phones. I was going to identify gang members. We were going to handle dangerous situations. We were going to get people that were dangerous on our yard, off of our yard and into SEG. And, that was my day in and day out. I waited 17 years until I decided that I was going to promote before I changed that. So at that point, I kind of had my pick of anything that I really wanted. And so it was difficult to give that up. There was a calculus of everything going into that. There were some, external things. I thought, yes, a little more pay, that's going to be nice. But there were a lot of things that were also negatives. Also, when you look at that, okay, I want to be able to be an impact player from the side, to be the one, doing the coaching, to be the one doing the training, to be the one, executing larger and more complex types of security interventions. And I decided at that point that I was going to, try and do that, and so I did that for many years and then wound down my career. And then after all of that was over and I retired, I came back again as an officer, going back down to the bottom, but where none of that mattered. I was able to pick my shift, pick exactly where I wanted to work because I was retired and knew it. And at that point, and I was back doing the thing that I loved the most. And I think I was probably a little bit happier at that point, being able to do those things.
Yeah, and I want to mention something before we get to Joe too, is, by the way, I mean, you don't have to move up to have an influence on somebody. I mean, Russ always made an impact, and whether he was an officer or a sergeant, when he went back as an officer, now he's working on the rehabilitation side. I mean, Russ is just an impact player because of who he is. But having said that, when you do move up, it does give you a little bit more influence upwards. So it's always good to understand where you want to have that impact. Do I want to impact just the person next to me, or do I like to try my best to maybe impact at the highest level possible? So it's not just about the person to the left or right of me, but maybe it's about the team or the facility itself. So, I mean, that's a great reason to move up, by the way. Not an easy thing to do, but definitely something that you could always strive to be. It's part of that infinite game. You're never going to get to the end result, but that's good. It's never about settling for the best, but always striving to be better. That's the key. But I want to mention something too, guys. When you're looking to move up, the reason matters. Again, as I said, the superficial, it's one thing, but if you're looking to grow, then that could be a good reason to look at the sacrifices that have to be made in order for you to achieve that growth. So like if I start to become stagnant and I start to become bored in this profession, I don't want to be miserable. Okay, I'm starting to do the same job. It's starting to kind of be the same thing. What do I do? I need to change scenery. I don't want to be too comfortable with my days off, because at the end of the day, those days off, yeah, they're great to have those days off, but I'm getting bored in this career. So, if I'm looking to grow and try to, I got to do this for 25, 30 years. If I'm looking to try to bring some more life into what I'm doing, then I'm going to have to jump out of that comfort zone. So one thing that I would say is, if you're looking to grow, whatever it is, never get too comfortable with those days off. Always see those as temporary. If you have a growth mindset, always see those as temporary, because any moment that could shift the moment you decide to move up, or even lateral, any type of change, actually. What's your thoughts on this, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with you, especially when it comes to the stagnancy. Never let yourself get stagnant. And I was that officer that after being on shift for so long, and everybody kind of looks up to you, and part of the administration kind of looks down to you to help cultivate the other officers. And after a certain period of time, you said it best. You get to that plateau where it's almost I don't know how you want to classify it. Same shit, different day. And when you start seeing other people promote, and and everybody's had that thought before, when they see people get promoted, and you're thinking, hell, I can do that. I could do that better. You got to have the strive in order to want to promote, not only, not especially from an external incentive, because I'm telling you, especially in Texas at that time, the difference between a veteran officer and a sergeant was only $86 a month. So it damn sure wasn't the money. And back then we weren't even getting paid overtime. So it was more about, my wanting to grow and kind of spread my wings a little bit. And I just felt that I had done it as an officer, and I really couldn't do any more.
And guys, when you think about that, guys, I want to make sure we understand the seniority perks. I don't know if you guys are picking up on the message here. It's not enough to keep you in the same position. I want you to know that if you have that urge to move up and it's for the right reasons, the seniority perk will later become an excuse later on when you start to regret, why didn't you move up? Mind you, guys, what you feel are valid reasons now, later on, these could become excuses, and then those excuses become regrets. So I get it. We're comfortable, and this is what we got. But if you have that urge to move up, and the urge is for the right reasons because it's coming from the inside out, it's not about like Joe said, it's not about the external incentive. It's about, man, I know I could do more. And like Russ said, I know I can have a bigger impact. But you're like, well, I don't want to risk Saturdays and Sundays. Wait till you get to the end of your career when that's not going to be enough. When you start to say, well, that excuse was not really worth it. So when it comes from people that are seniority perks, I wouldn't use that as a main reason to not move up. I just don't think it holds enough weight in the long run. And guys, I want to add something else too. When people move up, that seniority perk is a sacrifice that we know is automatically made. And I think sometimes frontline may not realize that sacrifice, but that's a sacrifice that we jump into, and we do go back to that beginning. And that's a sacrifice that when we're sitting around other supervisors, we all know we have that in common to some extent. We all know that we all made that sacrifice knowing that our life would kind of be a little bit shambles, but eventually it will take some time, but we start to get back into those routines of what worked best for us and our families. Because again, there's less competition. We're not competing against many. Now it starts to lessen out. And most people that are supervisors, in some cases, now it's changed because in desperate hours, we've been promoting a lot quicker now, but usually are people that are more senior. But having said that, that's not 100% anymore either. Okay, so that pushes the first one out. And again, I think that was great. Now I'll start with Joe on this one, and then we'll go to Russ, and I'll kind of comment in between. Not truly understanding the responsibility of the higher position. Now, Joe and Russ, and I know you guys agree with me on this, a lot of people look up and they automatically assume what that next level does because they may be directly affected by that next level. So like an officer may think they know exactly what a sergeant does, and a sergeant may think they know exactly what a lieutenant does, and so far up the chain until you get people like sometimes an officer may think they know exactly what an administrator does, however far up that may be. The point is, guys, until you're in that position, you really don't know. And I know that for a fact. It's just those increased areas of responsibility add so much weight because, again, guys, when you move up, as your areas increase, so do the amount of people that you're in charge of. So the amount of people, the amount of concerns multiply. They just multiply and multiply. Now, all of a sudden, you start facing concerns that you never knew were even a problem until you get that position. It's like, well, that's a problem. I never knew that was a problem until I got the higher position. But what's your thoughts about people not truly understanding the responsibility of the higher position, Joe?
There's a lot more of them out there than anybody will know. I mean, for myself personally, I knew, I knew most of what a sergeant should do. But once I got the position, when you come from a shift of 20 to 22 as an officer, and all of a sudden you're a sergeant on, and you're commanding a shift of 63, and all the problems that could come with, the employees versus the offenders, and vice versa. Never assume anything, man, because I'm telling you that big picture is a lot bigger and it's a lot broader than what you thought you knew at the officer's level.
I see you agreeing with that, Russ. I caught it before you said it. I know it was a little delayed there, but you got it. All right, fair enough. Hey, Russ, I was actually going to say, I saw you agreeing with what Joe was saying. What was hitting home with you there?
Yeah, so the way that I tend to look at this, or at least the words that I like to use when I'm explaining this to people, is that when you're at that lowest response level, as far as being an officer out there on the front line, is there's a lot fewer moving parts. Your particular job, even though it is very complex, when we're talking about having to respond to emergencies and things like that. It's very easy to keep track of what it is that you're supposed to do. Maybe you're supposed to go and get the chemical agents or the cuff box during a riot, and you're supposed to respond when you're called, or you're supposed to respond, being self-deployed to a situation, and you only have to look at your post orders to know what you have to do. It's very easy under those circumstances to go ahead and do what exactly needs to be done. When you move up to these higher levels, especially I think that of sergeant, what starts to happen is there are a lot more moving parts. And all of those new moving parts involve everyone that you have direct supervision, and in some cases, even indirect supervision, because you have to know where everyone is supposed to respond to. You have to be able to give the directions to have that happen sometimes. You have to be the one that maybe triggers that. And then on top of all of that, you have to know every single thing that comes along with certain types of responses. What happens if I have an officer out there, for instance, that perhaps uses lethal force? What do I do then? And it's being able to keep that in your mind while things are occurring in real time, and being able to get the correct response there, while at the same time making sure that we're not going to completely lose the situation that really, separates that lower level officer from a high functioning sergeant, because there's so much on the line in those particular circumstances.
I want to add to that because that's really spot on, Russ. I want to tap into something on that too. In my experience, as you move up, you become more responsible for the outcome as opposed to process. I mean, I love to push down the process all day. I think that basically this is what we need to accomplish. This is what I'm expecting, and then you kind of push down those expectations. Make sure that people are clear with it, and they kind of run with it and develop the process behind it. I think when it comes to being responsible for the outcome of someone else's work, that's not always easy. It's not. I mean, you get people that tend to micromanage individuals because they're so afraid of the outcome not being at this high level of expectation that what happens here is it's like, well, you know what? I'm going to just get involved in that. It's like, no. You got to step away, because now you're responsible for that work, but you have to let the other people do that work. And again, there's a development, and we talked about in a show the other day, a development of trust in that front line. You're delegating authority, not task. You're delegating based on the belief that this person is competent and they have integrity. And the sad thing is, guys, is as supervisors, as you move up, I'm going to say it right now, distrust is earned, which means that you blindly trust your people to some extent until they prove you wrong. Because when you start moving up, you wind up taking control of so many areas. Your areas of responsibility increase that you don't have time to question everything that's coming your way. You really just have to say, well, hey, the work is good, we're good. Unless the person starts messing up, then it's like, hey, at this level, you're messing up. Now you've earned a level of distrust. So I think as you start to move up, in order to keep the ship moving, there is a blind level of trust that you give, unless people take advantage of it and unless the distrust starts to form. But that's one thing, guys, to me, that was hard, is now taking on the responsibility of the outcome of other people's work. And when I say taking on the responsibility, guys, if there's a failure, you step up and you take it as a team. You don't separate. This is me. I was the supervisor of that. And, we'll go ahead and we'll do better next time. And then going back and being constructive with your people. So the funny thing about this all, and I think Joe mentioned this in the dialogue we had yesterday, was that when you become responsible for the team effort, you're the one that's taking the blunt when it goes wrong. You're the one that is taking all the anger and the heat from those above, but then you cannot translate that to the people below. So now you have to find a way to compose yourself and then try to present a positive message to them to keep them encouraged, to keep them moving forward, because we've all been on the other end of bad meeting with a supervisor who really doesn't know how to construct. They treat a developmental mistake like as if it's a negligent or a criminal fucking thing. And next thing you know, you just buried my initiative to move forward. But the last thing I want to do as a good leader is translate that downward. So I got to get my composure. And then I'm going to go back and say, hey, guys, we kind of dropped the ball on this. So what do you think we could do better next time? And Joe did mention that during the discussion we had yesterday. If you guys get a chance, please check that out. But again, the higher level responsibilities, as you start to move up, I don't think they're clearly seen from the lower level. So be wary that, of what that next position could hold, but you're never really going to know until you're actually in that position. So again, you really need to ask yourself, and kind of going to relay throughout this whole thing, but why you want this position. Because again, when it comes to those responsibilities, the superficial shit ain't going to carry any weight. It's not. So again, and it's funny, one more thing, guys, the superficial external incentives, they make obstacles, but if you have a reason why, the obstacles then become a challenge or an opportunity. So again, the mindset does matter in why you're taking the position. All right, so I'll start with Russ on this one first. I thought this was spot on too. Separation from your peers. All right, Russ, what does that mean?
Okay, so I think the first thing that you got to understand is that corrections in and of itself is conflict. And some of those conflicts don't always happen just with the inmates. In fact, there may be more conflict among your peers and among those who are supervising you than any other point. That's the nature of the beast. It's something that you have to wrestle with. I'll never forget, I went into, my first couple of weeks as a sergeant, with the same, thing I always had. I always had my officers back, my peers, they were alongside me. We were fighting this fight together. Same thing when I started as a sergeant. I always have their back, always looking out for them, always helping them with their reports, always helping them with their training, always doing everything I can to maximize the way that they impact safety and security. But not everyone sees it that way. And, I was just completely taken aback. We had, what I thought at the time, and well, I won't get into all that, but anyway, we had a union, and the union guys were just as, anti-supervisor, anti-managerial, anti-administrative as you could be. And that translated exactly over to me, where the union president, just decided that he was going to, or someone next to him, decided that they were going to, disobey an order. And it wasn't an order that was, out of the realm of having to be done. It was just a matter of, getting some equipment from one place to another and making sure that it was clean. It was riot helmets that we needed because we had just had a riot or were expecting another one. So, and they just came at me just completely out of left field and saying, well, you know what? You're a sergeant now. You're no longer one of us. And I'm talking, this is in my first 2 weeks. And I was just blown away. And I just got to thinking, is this the way that they're treating every sergeant? Is this the way that they're just treating me? And I came to realize that sometimes, we have good relations with people that are based on status, and we don't necessarily understand that. And when that status changes, they change. It's not that you change, but they change. And so sometimes when those things start to happen and it seems really inexplicable, all you have to look for is the change. If you didn't change, it means that they changed. And why did they change? It was because your status changed. And so that's one of the things that's, hard to take sometimes, but you have to be willing to, attack it straight ahead every single time. And it's not necessarily pleasant.
Yeah, you know what is funny? So when you enter this career, you need to connect yourself to the right people, see this as a career from the get-go. And if you decide to move up, how you carried yourself as an officer, as that frontline person, is really going to set the expectations as you start to move up, what other people are going to expect you to be, who they're going to expect you to be once you move up. So if you were a play theme as a frontline person, you start to move up, it's going to be hard for you to go ahead and break away from that perspective, especially if you're being promoted to the same facility where you know the people that you've worked with. You were peers. It could happen a lot in jails where promotion stays within the facility. So, one day we're your peers and the next day I move up, and now there's that level of separation. I think that if you are professional your whole way through this career, I think that when you move up to that next level, the boundary's already set. So like Russ said, nothing changes. Nothing changes because you have already set the boundary by who you were when you were the front line. So when you move up, yes, you moved up to that higher level, but people know who you are. So they know what to expect from you, and vice versa. You also know what to expect from them. So with that said, I think, connecting to that career, keeping that professional mindset. And then when you start to move up, you don't have to draw the boundaries. The boundaries are already there. I mean, as I became sergeant. So here's the thing. I've been to 4 different facilities each time I moved rank, each time I made rank, which gave me a chance to establish who I needed to be at each place, because they would only see me as that person, as that supervisor. But then eventually people would trickle in that I did work with from another facility, and they were the ones that had to adapt, kind of very similar to what Russ said, because at that point I've already been accepted as that supervisory role. And not only have they've accepted me, but I've accepted myself in that role because I've had that time to adjust. Now, the funny thing is that as I move around on the compound, as I do my tours, whatever it is, some people, I don't say it's automatically a respect for the position. I think it's more of a respect for you, where when you're walking around, they tend to shift their dialogue a little bit, or they tend to maybe go back to how things should be operating, let's just say, so I don't know if that's, it could be a part of the position, but I also think it's a respect for you, because if they know you, they know what you're about. And it's like, well, I know Gangi, he's not really going to sweat that. But the funny thing is I'm not going to do it in front of him either, because I have respect for him. So even though Gangi won't come at me for these small things, I'm still not going to do it in front of him because I have respect for him. And the other thing is, for people that say, remember your roots, and guys, the funny thing is, this is all in my book too. The remember your roots is more about what can you take from your past, bring it up, and have that strengthen your next route. Basically, you don't forget your roots because you're evolving, you're growing. So you need to take these components, your core, your foundation, and you move it up. But sometimes when people do foolish things and you're their supervisor, they may say, well, don't you remember your roots? And that's not the right way. That's an effort to make you look backwards. That's an effort to, why are you this way now when you should be this? It's like, well, there's a professionalism here, and remember my roots is a great tool for me to grow and evolve, but it's not a great tool to be utilized to have me constantly look at myself backwards. And one thing I will find that you guys will find is that when you move up, the hardest thing you may ever have to do, and it could happen, is write up a former peer. A former peer may be the hardest, writing them up may be the hardest thing you ever have to do. I'm not going to say you want to do it, but sometimes it may be needed. So you could set that boundary, not just so much with the people, but also with yourself. If it got to a point where you can't construct this person, because remember, this is a last ditch effort here, and you have to write the person up. It's not an emotional decision. It's not based on this person being your peer and you guys were friends, you went fishing a while ago. The decision has to be made. And it's one of the hardest things you have to do, but you have to do it correctly, because that sets the standard on so many levels. And again, we're all going to catch ourselves in that position where we have to write up somebody that was a former buddy, and how you react to that really does matter. And again, it's not something that you want to do, but it really does test the boundaries of, are you ready for the responsibility of this position? Because here's the funny thing. If you don't hold people accountable for those actions, then how do you expect, to set the message where you want to hold inmates accountable? As you start to move up, one of the hardest things that we're talking about now is responsibility also comes with holding people accountable. That's one of the hardest things. And believe it or not, if it's killing your team, because that's the key, then you're messing up if you're not holding people accountable for their actions that are affecting team or the orderly operation. So again, holding people accountable is another thing that's not so easy to do, but falls into that level of responsibility, but also connects with your peers. Are you willing to write up somebody, if you have to, who you went fishing with, who you were buddies with? And guys, it's not easy, but I would recommend it has to be done. Sad to say, if it gets to that last ditch effort, but holding people accountable matters. What's your thoughts on all that, Joe? Because there's a lot there.
Oh yeah, there is a lot there. And oddly enough, you touched on both of my quotes that were in your book, Anthony.
Oh.
Total, lack of accountability is worse than total accountability sometimes. Because once you let it run rampant, sometimes it's hard to get that back. And when you first promote, if you're professional in your duties and you're professional in your interactions with your staff, and you're one of those officers that had your other officers' backs and supported them, backed them up, helped them out when you needed to, or when they needed the help and you were free because you got your stuff done, whatever. When you first promote, no matter what shift you're on, no matter what facility you're at, you have your congratulators and you have those that drink the haterade, what I call the haterade. But you know who those people are, before you even promote, because they're already talking shit about you before you even decided to go up and promote. So, if you're professional enough in your duties, when you promote, that really shouldn't be an issue, because, like I told, most of my people that congratulated me, and you had some like, man, you're one of them now. You're a communist. What the hell? And it's hard to make them understand that you're there to help them. You're doing this because you want to help them grow. It never really was about me. It was because I felt that I can do more to help them spread their wings and become better individuals and better correctional officers. And, the only way you can do that, and it's possible to get the whole shift back, even the haterade drinkers, is management by walking around. Get out there and connect with the staff. 9 times out of 10, when you talk to the haters, you find out that they really they hate you because of the fact that you were their go-to person when you were an officer. And now they feel like they don't have that anymore because you're one of them. And, that's when it's your time to shine as a entry-level supervisor, sergeant, whatever the case may be. And, you tell them, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for y'all. I'm doing this for all of you because I want to help you succeed. And I feel that I can do that at this level better than I could as an officer. And when it comes to the accountability issues, oh my God, yes, that sucks. It absolutely sucks, especially when you absolutely have to do a formal disciplinary. Yeah. Right off the bat, because they committed a violation that was so egregious that an ass chewing, a written reprimand is just not going to cut it. I've seen over the years where most people have accepted it because of the fact that they knew they screwed up from the get-go and they knew it was coming. And sometimes the response was, you know what, I'm glad it was you writing the disciplinary instead of somebody else. Mm. Because I feel like I could take it better from you because you know who I am, where this sergeant, who may be just not a rotational sergeant, but an alternate sergeant or a backup sergeant, comes in. He doesn't know me. He doesn't know who I actually truly am. And I feel like he would have judged me just right off of this one instance. And there's been other times where, it is what it is. That's where the kind of that not seeing a whole picture thing comes up, because once you get up in there, now you're dealing with not only you're not just responsible for the offender population anymore. Now you're responsible for employees. Now you're responsible for HR issues. Now you're responsible for interdepartmental compatibility and bringing this total ye to everything. Man, all I can say is stay true to your own integrity when you go up, because it's going to be tested in ways that you never thought that it would be. But if you continue to be who you were when you were an officer, and your values are there, your integrity is there, your loyalty to your people are there, right, wrong, or indifferent, I think it'll take some time, but it's something you can get used to, but it is hard.
Yeah, and I like what you said something too, real quick. I don't want to it's good just to put the thought out there, a little bit of a nugget, but as you move up, the team increases, even though you should always see what you do as the bigger picture. Like how does what I do right now affect the other departments? It may not be so easily seen at the front line, especially if you're very task driven. But having said that, as you start to move up, you can't help but see the bigger picture. So when you start seeing the bigger picture, you see all the team members that are involved, which really goes right down to the department heads, each department. So, knowing how your performance is affecting the others. And then as a supervisor, the more you understand of the bigger picture, the more you can see the scoreboard, let's say, where we're at in the game is that's where the accountability can come in, where it's like, hey, you're only doing what's best for yourself right now. And you're not helping out the team, and I'm responsible for the team as a whole. I'm not just responsible for you, Joe. I'm responsible for the team now. So if I fail to hold you accountable, then the team's going to turn on me, 100%. And again, you don't want to put, a supervisor, especially someone that you were good with. You don't want to put them in that position. You don't want to keep on telling them, hey, remember your roots for the wrong reasons, because, it puts them in a conflict. And if you were their friend or you really cared for them, you would first support their growth and definitely not be in a position to provide them with conflict, because trust and believe, as supervisors, you're running towards conflict all the time. The last you want is conflict that really is selfish in nature. It's not conflict that's actually meant to build anybody. It's just conflict that's only meant to help you. So at the end of the day, the supervisor is like, yeah, but this is your battle. I'm doing what I have to do, but in the end, you're just holding me back. So where's the friendship there? I get the position now. You're only using me. But again, it's something that you are going to have to do. And if you feel that you cannot do that, I definitely would not take the higher position, because it's going to happen. Not that you want it to happen, but it's going to happen, and it's going to put you in a position where you have to do it. And it's the worst feeling in the world, and it never gets easier, but you have to be able to do that. And if you're a play fiend, as I said at the beginning of your career, and the shit that you do is foolish, when you start to move up, watch when you have to hold somebody accountable, the shit that they try to hold over you. The shit that, you're going to write me for that when you used to do this and you used to do that and blah, blah, blah. So don't do that. Don't be that officer, because when you start to move up, people, as I said, are going to know what to expect of you. So when they go to throw some leverage, hey, what leverage you have on me? I've always done my job. So you're not going to play this game that I'm a hypocrite, that I'm writing you up for things that I did, not going to happen. And again, guys, if you are a play fiend right now and you have to become a supervisor where you are holding people accountable, and you're a play fiend right now, and then you want to play that role later on, you'll never have the respect from your people. That's why play the career right now. It's a career, be professional the whole way through. Because when you have to write somebody up for being unprofessional and they're able to throw 20 times where you were unprofessional, the write-up becomes weak, and you just automatically lose respect. So again, always stay professional. I saw Russ and Joe in agreement with that, because I'm sure that's happened. Russ made up a good one here. I wasn't even thinking of this one, but I think this is definitely something we got to gloss over a little bit. Political gamemanship. So gamemanship is actually a trademark word. I just found that out, so I'm sure YouTube will give me another strike. The way fucking YouTube does it. But Russ, it's still worth discussing. Political gamemanship. So what are we talking about?
Like I said before, with regards to, being in corrections and it being conflict, is you start having potentially, I'm not saying this is going to happen in every case, you start having the potential for people below you playing games and the people above you playing games, because some people are just like that. Some people are not oriented on what the mission is. Our mission each and every day is public safety, staff safety, and inmate safety. Those are the only three things that we do. Those are the only three things that we're legitimately tasked with day in and day out. Instead, we have people who are, catering to get ahead in their career, which is fine when they do it through legitimate means, but not when they're doing it by trying to make you look worse. It's not okay when they're doing it, in order to pay you back. Sometimes things happen between people, and sometimes you just got to let it go. The place for paybacks is not within the penal arena, let me tell you. So you've got that. And so sometimes you tend to get, knocked back and forth sometimes for reasons that you can't even understand. I had very late in my career, I had internal affairs come after me hard for no apparent reason that I could see, merely because a riot had happened on my shift. And part of it, the reason that they said that they were coming after me, is because I had predicted it. Well, I predicted it, and I had told my captain that it was going to happen. I had told my lieutenant that it was going to happen. I had notified all of my staff that it was going to happen. And I gave a recommendation to my captain that we not run yard. All of my staff, handled themselves extremely well. We got everybody safely put away. It was between two warring factions. At that time, it was the Bulldogs and the Southsiders, and everyone functioned flawlessly. Yet they found it, for some reason, necessary to come after me. I believe that they were actually coming after my captain, and I think that I was just in the way. But I had no way of knowing that, and I felt like I felt betrayal, because I felt like people were getting in their political paybacks at my expense, and they didn't care, because that's the kind of people they are. Now, I could be totally wrong on that, but the things that I did that day were to guarantee public safety, staff safety, and inmate safety. And so sometimes you don't get to see what that political picture looks like. You may not be aware of the games that people are playing at your expense. And I always considered myself to be a person who was able to see the deep things inside that onion and see the different layers and stuff. But if you don't have a way inside, you still can't see it.
Yeah, I want to comment because that's spot on. As you move up, especially at my level, I do see politics a little bit more. I think my job at this point is, if we are dealing with the pressure of politics, because unfortunately, like all states, external pressure could be quite heavy. And then the sad thing is, not only is it heavy, but then they push like urgent, superficial time limits, which really don't matter in the long run, but applies more pressure. And then you get people, and this is just generally speaking, guys, just generally, then you get people that they get so overwhelmed that they start breaking away from the core values because they're more concerned about the urgency of a superficial time that really can't be applied to anything. It's just that's the timeline they want. And now, instead of us moving in a controlled, strategic manner, we're more concerned about a superficial time limit. And now we start breaking away from the core values because we're more concerned about getting this thing done or this change done. My job for me, I think, and this is hard, guys, is when you get something that you don't agree with, you have to be able to translate that to your people in an effort for them to stay motivated and keep it moving. And sometimes I would like to think that would involve their investment if you don't have people micromanaging the how. Again, that's not always going to be the case. Sometimes people want to do the what and the how, and now management's like, shit, I have no way to even get these people invested because we can't even come up with the solution to this. You got us doing the what and the how, or you're doing the what and the how and leaving us with nothing. I mean, in some cases, I find that if a change has to happen or we're evolving into this direction here, tell us what the what is, and then let me go talk to my people and we'll get invested and we'll come back with the solution. So at least I can get them involved. But when it comes to the political side, I do think that you have to find a way to build that understanding of what's happening and then having to translate that to your people so they constantly stay motivated and you don't lose out on that momentum. But sometimes frontline may not, or they may know what's happening, but they may not understand why it's happening because no one is telling them why, which I think is the most foolish thing to do. If you know why can't we tell them? Because if anything, they can make it better, but sometimes it's not for them to know. It is for them to know because they're tactical. They got to carry it out. And the problem is the last thing I want is to send them this down and they have no understanding of why and they're not motivated. And, when you don't know why, you don't know the parameters and you don't know what if you're doing is aligned with what really is supposed to be expected. But politics, sometimes they can't even explain the why anyway because they don't know. They make these changes that are based on based on failures that they generalize out, and they wind up trying to get this paper-driven facility. But again, I think the politics side, kind of going off on a rant here, but the politics side is you're going to have to explain it. And the sad thing is that you may have some level of influence or maybe a little voice, but technically if something has to be carried out, it's your job to translate that message in a way where the front line stays motivated in carrying that out. And today's times, that's tough. And that's going to cross into the last tip or the last concern that we have. So I don't want to get too far in that, but translating the politics of it all becomes heavy because, you have to be able to translate that message out in a way that keeps the front line motivated. And I think the best way to do that is to give them a level of understanding of why this has to be done. What's your thoughts on that, Joe?
Yeah, the political arena really is a toughie, especially as a lieutenant, because you're stuck dead set in the middle of it between administration and your frontline supervision. And when things happen, we all know that every state has their external pressures, whether it's ombudsmen's or senators' offices, mama calls, whatever the case is, that stirs up the political arena. How you define that scenario and how you translate it and communicate it to your people and make them see the entire thing go around is and make them understand it is detrimental. I mean, our state here within the last couple of years, I say couple of years, it's been more like 4 or 5 years now, put telephones in day rooms for the offenders. And, when an offender's on the phone with their family member and you have that one staff member, and every shift has one that, are not very tactful, should I say. And, those handsets are very sensitive of what they can pick up. And, that translate into the mama calls and the political complaints coming in. And I found that just kind of reinforcing some things, being professional with your peers and your staff and how important that is. And there's been other times where, thankfully, with that telephone system, we could actually monitor those phone calls and take little clips of them when we need to. And I've taken one or two to a shift briefing and kind of replayed it and everybody got a good laugh out of it. But then, I had to explain the whole process of what came about from that. And that's in that political arena. Yeah. Inmate's mother heard it. The mother called the senator, their local state representative called the executive director's office. The executive director's office passed it down to the warden, and just kind of tumbles downhill, and you kind of make them understand that, the way they carry themselves professionally can help them, and help the facility stay out of the political arena. All it takes is just a different outlook and a different approach. But, being in that political arena, man, it can be tough sometimes, especially at a lieutenant's level, because you're fielding complaints from below and you're fielding complaints from above. And somewhere you gotta find that happy medium and meet in the middle.
Yeah, you're speaking what we say, the 3 different languages, the tactical, operational, and the strategic. You know what the funny thing is I've actually seen that play in motion. I've seen an issue on the front line that I knew, because this inmate was connected, that it's going to make its way up. And within a matter of 20 minutes, it was already blown up to the right people, which wind up causing changes. And it's crazy how quick that influence can occur. Now, for us, we never get it, never that quick. But for an inmate, it just seems to be someone has the right connection and something. It's like, how the hell did they find out? It just happened. But it's the way they could facilitate the phone call, or really, to be honest with you, it's the connection they have with the person who has influence. And I'm going to let people know something, guys. If you're on the front line, I want to tell you something about politics. It's always going to sway more towards the inmates' wants, not even needs, because we're responsible for their needs technically, but their wants, because they have the bigger pool when it comes to voting. Let's be honest. We're not, Let's be honest. And for those that stay with us, thank you. Because there are some people that know what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong, and they won't shift regardless of what the votes are. There's a few of them out there. I've noticed that in my time. But let's be honest, guys, to have a move like that happen within 20 minutes, it's because whatever it is, it's a connection that can influence votes. So again, I mean, sometimes it's great. But most of the time, guys, to have that level of influence affect our job at that level really is a foolish move by people on the outside thinking that they're doing what's best when what they're doing really is, I don't know, leading a charge without any information. I mean, that's what they wind up doing. And they put us literally in the middle of a battle, and they're the ones that are totally responsible for it, because they're not letting us do it. What needs to be done. And most of the time it's a quote that Russ has in the book. It's what we talked about at the beginning. It's the asking for mercy and never for justice. And the people that are in charge of making these moves are hearing the mercy. But when we ask for justice, there's no response. And now the facilities that operate, to some extent, like in New York with the HALT Act and all this other stuff that's happening, these facilities aren't being ran on justice, which is very balanced, guys. When I say justice, we shouldn't automatically think punitive. That's bullshit. That's subjective, and that's your interpretation. I work in the justice system. I see balance. That's what I see. That's my interpretation. And you can't challenge my interpretation because I've been in this business for over 20 years, and that's how I see it. So people are like, oh, justice, so you always want to be punitive. I never said punitive. If that's how you see justice, that's your perspective, not how I see it. But the funny thing is that when we go to bring up something related to justice and the inmate goes to bring up something related to mercy, they're quick to go to the mercy side. Now, the problem is we can't carry out justice. So I just, people on the outside looking in should listen to that because that matters. A facility doesn't run safely on mercy. It runs on justice. This is the last one. This is hard, but it must be done. And if you're going to move up and you cannot do this during this time, then you're not in a position to move up. Sorry, guys. It is what it is. And this is staying positive or optimistic. Now, mind you, guys, there's a difference between the two. Positive, some people may see as a shift in reality. Like, oh, someone's dying. Well, think of it positive. You still have them for today. Well, you can't always do that. They're trying to shift something. And optimistic usually makes more sense because you have to have hope. So I know we're going through a rough time today, but it doesn't mean it's going to be rough forever. For me, I do like to still stay with positive as well, because I think that we spend a lot of time looking at the negative that we're not finding the positive. So I'm not telling you to shift that negative thing into something positive. I'm just telling you, shift your focus a little bit. Look to the left, look to the right. Don't always look here. And as I said, we're optimistic. It's just, you got to have hope. You cannot lead a team if you don't have hope that tomorrow is going to be better. You can't. I'm sorry. You can't lead people that have no hope. But I'll go with Joe first on this, Joe. But I know the times are rough, more now than ever. But if you're becoming a supervisor right now, how important is it for you to stay positive and or optimistic?
It's totally detrimental. I mean, you said it yourself. You can't lead a charge, and that's what I've always called it. I even had it written on my shift book, leading the charge. You're not going to lead nothing if you're always negative. If you're in that negative mindset all the time, you're not going to lead shit, and nobody's going to follow you. They're either going to feed into that negativity, and from there you started a snowball that's running downhill that you're never going to catch. It's totally detrimental that you're positive, and I'm not going to say so much optimistic. I'm more leaning towards a positive on my end, because as a lieutenant, I feel that if you don't promote things in a positive faction, that you're never gonna draw your people in and buy the idea and sell that dream. You can be optimistic in the way you talk. I'm not saying don't have hope. Shit, you got to have hope, especially with the conditions that all the penitentiaries in the states are facing today with short staffing. But you always found that your shifts ran better short staffed, and if you walk in and go, shit, here we go. We're 7 people down. We got to feed chow. We got to do all this. We got to get this crap out. That already demoralized your staff, your shift briefing, and your people are already in that negative mode. Versus, hey, folks, I know we're short, but you know what? We get it done. We always have, and we always will. You know, especially if you're that kind of leader that's willing to jump out there and get it done with them. You know, the more positive you are in your message, no matter how negative it was when it came down from the administration, it's your job to stay positive. It's your job to be optimistic with your people, and it's your job to sell that dream and keep it positive. Because we talked about this on the other episode. You know, I've had my wig blown back many a times, but I've never taken that negativity back to my shift, and I never will. You have to stay positive. Totally detrimental. Totally.
And Russ, obviously, Russ, you're in agreement to this, correct?
Yeah, one of the things I see out there day in and day out in all the different forums that I visit and see, it's that typical thing where we almost become, caricatures of our own, hatred, our own disillusionment. And, there's a lot of people out there that they either feed on that or they feed into it, living the dream. That's what I'm doing today. And there's never anything, truly positive that comes out of seeing things from that perspective. And I don't mean that we got to put on rose-colored glasses and sing Kumbaya every morning. But what I do mean is that, this is a serious business. And we take it seriously and we devote a lot of seriousness to it. But that doesn't mean that we have to just, always be down. I will say this. I think that more has been done to beat people down as far as the morale goes over the last few years with COVID and with even shorter staffing than usual. Those things, they're legitimate and hard to get a handle on. But at the same time, what way do we have to go except forward and through? So if we decide that we're going to go forward and through, it's easier to do it if we do have, some base of optimism, if we do have a specific or even peculiar way of looking at things positively, optimistically, and working together to just be the best damn correctional staff that you can be. If you think that you're achieving that, the chances that you're going to wallow in your misery are a lot less.
You know what, guys? Good leaders or good supervisors don't rise when times are easy. They rise when times are tough because they're being tested. And I think one of the toughest things about corrections right now, especially going into the supervisory role, is to have that level of positivity, knowing where to look when everybody else is looking this way, and to have that optimism that connects to that shift in perspective. Like, hey, while you're all looking here, you got to look here, and if you stay here, then this is on the horizon. You just have to weigh it out. And I've been to a lot of conferences, and you do get a lot of people that are defeated, and then when you hear a supervisor that's defeated, adds to that level. So okay, officer's defeated. I can always go to the supervisor. They're going to help me with this. And now the supervisor's defeated. Fuck. And then if you get like the central office is defeated, oh shit. It's like, there's nothing you can lift up at that point if the supervisors are defeated. And again, this is really intentional mindset of the supervisor. When you cross into the supervisory position outside of that responsibility role, it is making sure your staff have value for what they do, so you have to remain positive. When you start to feel that they're breaking away from their belief in the value of the work that they do, then that's your job to go back and keep on showing them that specific appreciation, not generalized appreciation, specific appreciation. Hey, Joe, thanks for doing this yesterday. And Russ, if it wasn't for you, we couldn't have done this. I mean, because again, I think your job to keep that momentum going is literally the reminding of value, however it comes across. And the funny thing is, and we had this on a show recently, is if you can keep that momentum going, keep that positivity and light, then pizza parties could work because then they trust in the person that's providing it. But if you're not doing that and they're defeated, again, the pizza party could be just the opposite effect because they don't trust you. What's the motive? And that was a great show that we had. Yeah, that's from the thumbnail, Russ. Yeah, that was a thumbnail.
But you laugh, by the way.
Yeah. No, you're right. I didn't know what to do, so I just sat like this, and I couldn't get the pizza in the hand, so the pizza's off centered. But I remain positive and optimistic that people would understand the message of the thumbnail. So, but guys, before we go, I just want to add one last thing to the positive thing is that, again, going back to the conferences, I think it was the one in Nebraska where you could clearly see that people were defeated. And it hit me hard because it's like there's really nothing I can do to change what's happening. All I can do is hopefully give words of encouragement. But if you have a supervisor that's trying their best to keep things positive and you tend to stay in that negative mindset, like Russ had mentioned before, it's just words. That's all we have. How you want to apply those words, again, that's up to you. But if you want to keep yourself wallowing in pity, again, you got to do 25 years of this or however, or you got to do 16 hours a day. So you can choose your attitude and effort. As a supervisor, you always got to keep that positive momentum going, keep that optimism going, because if not, again, if you don't have it, the facility crumbles. It crumbles, guys. Morale is shot. No one's being affected. You just have people miserable. I'm not saying. I wish I could say that I want people to wake up on their Monday and want to go to work, but I would love to strive for that. I would love for people to just love what they do so much that when Monday comes, they look forward to work as opposed to just being defeated even before they go in. Because the problem is, if that becomes their mindset forever, then that becomes how they even interpret the positive. You guys realize something too. If you're constantly negative, even the positive comes your way, you're going to find a way to negatively spin that. So as a good supervisor, you need to stop that because that's going to cancel. That's going to spread a lot quicker than positivity. Negative spreads a lot quicker than positivity. So if you're not there constantly fueling with positivity, it takes one thing negative and it just sets the whole place on fire. So again, you got to try to counter that. And the countering it takes more effort. It just takes constant effort. Hey, Joe, you have anything you'd like to say in closing, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, for those of y'all who are actually thinking about, stepping up, I want you guys to have a clear, distinct, and total understanding of supervision. It's not as easy as it seems, especially when you're a lieutenant. The political arena is quite taxing at times. You have to have a high tolerance for some of the things that go on. But one of the most influential things that you can do is to stay positive, stay involved with your staff, and always promote a positive message. Don't take something negative that comes down to you from admin and then turn around and take that negativity back to your officers, because all you're doing is bitching down. You should never bitch down. If you're going to bitch up. Never bitch down to your people, because all you're going to do is lower their morale because they think that their value is worthless because you're bringing that negativity to a shift meeting. It's the worst thing you can do. I'm not saying hold it in. I'm not saying, by all stretch of the imagination, but, never take that negativity to your shift briefing. There's no way to lead. Always keep it positive. Keep their momentum going, and know that when you want to climb up in supervision, it has to be because of your personal strive to want to do better, be better, and help everybody around you be better. Because if you're doing it for an external incentive and, the money only, then you may need to reconsider that. Be better for yourself, be better for your people, and always stay positive, even during the dark times, because a little positivity, a little light at that end of that tunnel will go a long way.
Yeah. And guys, as I mentioned before, that external incentive, when we read the comment that was put on Russ's Facebook page, I don't really know what motivated the guy to go into the supervisory position, but again, these are the concerns that you're going to have. And if you're there for a superficial reason, then there's no way you're going to be able to defeat these concerns. It's just your motive it's not strong enough. You need inspiration at that point, especially talking about what we discussed here. It's not such a simple solution. Russ, what's your closing thoughts, Russ?
I'm really glad that we had the chance to break down just one question or one statement that happened there in Keepers of Chaos. It's just, it's really heartening, to see people seek that out. That person may have not realized that it was going to spark such a conversation. But you know what? I think every chance that we have to help, those below us, those above us, those to our sides, understand what's going on, and to be able to, reach out and help the person alongside them. In this case, he was just, I think he was a little bit not understanding why this person was so much happier at that lower level. Sometimes that's what it takes, but it takes all of us fulfilling different roles to get the mission done each and every day. And so, I would just encourage everyone that sees this, everyone that's out there working in corrections, come on over, check everything that you've got going on out there at YouTube. Check on everything that's going on over at Keepers of Chaos. We really are. I truly believe that we're changing the arc of the entire profession by the things that we're doing, and that we are making it more optimistic. We're making a better knowledge base for people, and we're able to, bring all of these different experiences that we've had to bear, not just by telling stories, but by pointing out the things that happen inside what we've done in order to actually, move the knowledge base forward. So, you know what? There's hope out there.
Yeah, and guys, there's close to 500,000 correctional staff. So this video is going to be dedicated to Michael Williams. And I'm sure when we post it up, Russ could let the gentleman know that this video was from a comment he mentioned. Just let him know what we care about. It was a great question. Thank you for trusting the platform to host that question, if you will. And it was enough question to build a dialogue off of that we felt could go beyond just comments. I mean, that's the key. I mean, comments are one thing, but I think sometimes there's a worthy discussion. That's why these topics tend to take a while, because we're developing as they go. We have no idea what we're going to discuss into. We just go it, and then we just build a healthy dialogue. This way it remains fun for me too, by the way, because at the end of the day, I've got over 12 and something videos. I need to learn on each one, or else I'm going to be overwhelmed and just burnt out. But again, my closing thought really is just a matter of, just becoming a supervisor for the right reasons. I think growth is a good reason. Making an impact, but know what that impact is, because that's another thing. If you want to say, well, I want to make an impact and not specific with it, then you have no idea what that position is going to allow you to do. So just saying, I'm going to go make an impact, but not being specific what that impact is, you're going to find yourself when you move up that, you wind up having, greater areas of responsibility, but less authority. I mean, I'm just being honest, guys. It's true. So, if you're going to make an impact, I would say, well, what is that impact? I want to make an impact on this profession. Well, what is it? You're going to tell me? Because, it's very, listen, before I end, I want to guys tell you something. I remember thinking that way. I want to move up and I want to make an impact. And no one's ever asked me what type of impact I wanted to make. Now that I moved up, I know what impact I can do, but it sure as hell wasn't what I thought I could do as a new boot. I thought I had a lot more power. Even as a sergeant, I thought I would have more power. Then when I became a sergeant, I was like, ooh, maybe I don't have as much as I thought. And then especially on the administrative level, it's like, well, what impact do you want to have? And it's like, well, what I want to do as a rookie, all I can do is do this. So again, you have to try to be specific with what that impact is, and let that be a good motivating factor. But again, you should be inspired to move up and not driven by some weak superficial incentive, because if you are, what would be a challenge is now an obstacle, and then you wind up being defeated because you're just not enough to move you forward. As always, guys, the show is tipped. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Stay safe. All right, everybody still waving. Hold on. I'm gonna hold it open for a little bit. Let you guys have like this awkward moment. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to do an awkward moment where I remove myself and leave you.
Now we're all by ourselves.
We finally kicked him out of the room. Yes.
Yes.
All right, I'm
Operation
back. And
success.
now I know what you guys are about. So now I'm ending the damn broadcast before you turn against me.